The blue light from the communication crystal hurt Zexithara's eyes as Elder Vorthmin's cold voice filled the small chamber. His superior's image flickered in the hologram, tall and imposing with the traditional silver robes that marked his high rank in the Caltherian Empire. Zexithara kept his posture straight and respectful as he waited for his new assignment. "You have been selected for a special observation mission," Elder Vorthmin said without any warmth in his tone. "The High Council has discovered a primitive species on the third planet of a small solar system. They call themselves humans and their world Earth." Zexithara felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This would be his first solo mission as a xenobiologist. He had spent years studying alien species in controlled laboratory settings, but field observation was completely different. The Elder continued speaking while data files appeared on the secondary display. "These creatures are unusual," Vorthmin explained, as images of humans flashed across the screen. "They have survived multiple extinction events on their planet. Wars, natural disasters, climate changes that should have destroyed them completely. Yet they continue to exist and even expand beyond their homeworld." The images showed humans in various settings: crowded cities, vast farmlands, and even small outposts on their moon and the fourth planet in their system. They looked fragile compared to Caltherians with soft skin and no natural armor or claws. Their technology seemed basic, using crude chemical rockets and primitive computers. "What makes them so resilient?" Zexithara asked, genuinely curious. "That is what you must discover," the Elder replied. "The Council believes they may possess some hidden advantage. Perhaps a genetic trait we have not detected, or tactical knowledge that could prove valuable. Your mission is to infiltrate one of their research stations and observe their behavior patterns." Zexithara studied the mission briefing that materialized before him. The target was a small scientific outpost on Mars, the fourth planet in the human solar system. Only 6 humans lived there, conducting atmospheric research and geological surveys. It seemed like a perfect location for quiet observation. "You will use the identity of Alex Morrison," Vorthmin continued as a false human appearance overlaid Zexithara's reflection. "Our intelligence division has created complete documentation showing you as a researcher transferred from their lunar colony. The holographic disguise will be perfect, as long as you avoid physical contact that might reveal your true nature." The disguise looked convincing. Zexithara's naturally tall frame was adjusted to average human height. His pale blue skin changed to a warm brown tone, and his large black eyes became smaller and hazel-colored. The transformation technology was one of the Empire's greatest achievements, allowing perfect infiltration of any species. "Remember," Elder Vorthmin's voice became even more serious, "you are there only to observe. Do not interfere with their activities or reveal yourself under any circumstances. The Council will decide their fate based on your reports, so accuracy is essential." Zexithara nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility. An entire species' future might depend on his observations. He wondered what he would find among these strange, resilient creatures called humans. The journey to the Mars research station took 3 standard days using a cloaked Caltherian scout ship. Zexithara spent the time reviewing human cultural files and practicing his cover story. He learned about human social customs, their tendency toward emotional decision-making, and their apparent need for constant social interaction. Everything seemed to confirm that they were a primitive, illogical species. The scout ship dropped him at the designated coordinates during a dust storm that provided perfect cover. His disguise activated automatically as he approached the station's main airlock, and he transmitted the prepared identity codes. Within minutes, a cheerful human voice crackled through the communication system. "Alex Morrison, welcome to Mars Station Beta. We've been expecting you for weeks. I'm Dr. Paul Rodriguez, the station commander." The airlock cycled open, and Zexithara got his first close look at a living human. Dr. Rodriguez appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He wore a casual jumpsuit instead of formal scientific robes, and his first action was to extend his hand toward Zexithara. "Glad you finally made it. The transport schedules from Luna have been crazy lately," Rodriguez said with genuine warmth. "Let me introduce you to the team." Zexithara carefully shook the offered hand, surprised by how warm human skin felt, compared to Caltherian physiology. Rodriguez led him through corridors that were smaller and more cramped than Caltherian ships, but somehow felt more comfortable and lived in. "Lisa Park runs our engineering systems," Rodriguez said as they entered a common area where a woman with short black hair looked up from a tablet. "She can fix anything that breaks, and believe me, things break a lot out here." Lisa smiled and waved from across the room. "Don't listen to him, Alex. I just hit things with a wrench until they work again." "Welcome to our little slice of paradise." The casual friendliness surprised Zexthara. In Caltherian society, introductions were formal affairs with proper ceremonies and status acknowledgments. These humans seemed to accept him immediately as part of their group. "And this is Steve Walker, our botanist and resident optimist," Rodriguez continued as a tall man with sandy hair emerged from what appeared to be a greenhouse area. His hands were covered in dirt and he wiped them on his shirt before offering a handshake. "Pleasure to meet you, Alex. Hope you don't mind the smell of fertilizer. I've been working on expanding our food production systems. Nothing like fresh vegetables to make Mars feel like home." Zexthara found himself responding to their warmth despite his mission training. "Thank you for the welcome. I look forward to contributing to your research." "That's what I like to hear," Rodriguez said with a grin. "We'll get you settled in your quarters first, then Lisa can give you the grand tour. Fair warning though, we're pretty informal here. No rigid schedules or strict hierarchies. We all do whatever needs doing." As they walked toward the living quarters, Rodriguez kept up a steady stream of conversation about the station's history, their current projects, and amusing stories about life on Mars. Zexthara found himself listening with genuine interest rather than just gathering intelligence data. The quarters assigned to him were small but comfortable, with personal touches that made the space feel welcoming rather than sterile. There was even a small window with a view of the Martian landscape. Rodriguez left him to unpack with promises of a proper dinner and more introductions later. Alone for the first time since arriving, Zexthara activated his hidden recording equipment and began his first observation log. "Initial contact successful," he spoke quietly into the device. "Humans appear to be exactly as predicted, emotionally driven, inefficient, and lacking proper social structure. However, their welcoming behavior toward strangers requires further study." He paused, thinking about Lisa's easy laughter and Steve's obvious pride in his work. There was something about these humans that didn't match the cold scientific reports he had studied. They seemed genuinely happy despite living in what any Caltherian would consider harsh, primitive conditions. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Alex, dinner's ready if you want to join us," came Steve's voice from the corridor. "Coming," Zexthara replied, deactivating his recording equipment. As he headed toward the common area, he reminded himself that he was here to observe, not to judge. But something told him this mission might prove more complicated than anyone had expected. The next morning, Zexthara woke to the sound of laughter coming from the common area. He had spent his first night on Mars analyzing his initial observations, but the cheerful human voices pulled him from his thoughts. When he emerged from his quarters, he found the team gathered around a table sharing breakfast and coffee. "Morning, Alex," Lisa called out, gesturing to an empty chair. "Hope you slept well. Mars sunrises take some getting used to, but they're pretty spectacular." Zexthara joined them at the table, still amazed by how naturally they included him in everything. In Caltherian society, newcomers had to earn their place through formal trials and demonstrations of worth. These humans simply accepted him as if he had always been part of their group. "So what's your specialty, Alex?" Steve asked while passing him a cup of coffee. "Paul mentioned you worked on atmospheric studies back on Luna." "Yes, mostly analyzing gas compositions and weather patterns," Zexthara replied, drawing on his prepared cover story. "I'm particularly interested in how planetary atmospheres change over time." "Perfect timing, then," Rodriguez said with enthusiasm. "We've been tracking some unusual pressure variations in the northern hemisphere. Could use a fresh perspective on the data." After breakfast, Lisa offered to show him around the station properly. They started in the engineering section, where she proudly explained each system. Zexthara was surprised by how much the humans had accomplished with such basic technology. Their solutions were often crude by Caltherian standards, but they worked reliably in the harsh Martian environment. "This whole section used to be storage space," Lisa explained as they walked through a corridor lined with humming machinery. "But when our original life support backup failed 6 months ago, I converted it into a secondary system. Took parts from everywhere and built something completely new." "You designed this yourself?" Zexthara asked, genuinely impressed despite himself. "Had to," Lisa shrugged. "Nearest repair parts are a 6-month round trip to Earth. Out here you learn to make do with what you have or you don't survive at all. That phrase stuck in Zexthara's mind as they continued the tour. Make do with what you have. It seemed to sum up the entire human approach to survival. Where Caltherians would have precise backup systems and redundant protocols, humans simply adapted and improvised. Later that day, Rodriguez invited him to review the atmospheric data they had been collecting. Zexthara expected to find sloppy record-keeping and imprecise measurements. Instead, he discovered months of careful observations with detailed notes about every anomaly and pattern. The pressure readings don't match our weather models, Rodriguez explained, pointing to charts displayed on an old computer screen. Something's causing regular fluctuations that we can't account for with standard atmospheric theory. Zexthara studied the data with growing interest. His advanced Caltherian knowledge immediately identified the cause as underground thermal vents affecting air pressure through a complex feedback loop. But revealing this would expose his true capabilities, so he pretended to analyze it like a human scientist. Have you considered subsurface heating effects? He suggested carefully. We thought about that, Rodriguez replied, but our ground sensors don't show enough thermal activity to explain these patterns. Maybe the sensors aren't looking deep enough, Zexthara offered. Rodriguez's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. We've been focusing on surface readings, but if the source is deeper underground... He turned to his computer and began pulling up geological survey data. Steve, come look at this. Alex might have solved our pressure mystery. Over the following days, Zexthara found himself drawn deeper into the team's work than his mission required. He told himself it was necessary for proper observation, but truthfully he was fascinated by how these humans approached problems. They didn't follow rigid scientific protocols. Instead, they shared ideas freely, built on each other's suggestions, and weren't afraid to admit when they didn't know something. The best discoveries come from admitting ignorance, Steve told him one evening as they worked together in the greenhouse. If you pretend to know everything, you stop looking for answers. Zexthara had been helping Steve modify the growing systems to increase food production. The botanist's enthusiasm for his work was infectious, and his willingness to share knowledge contrasted sharply with Caltherian scientific competition. On Earth, I worked in laboratories where scientists guarded their research like treasure, Steve continued, carefully adjusting nutrient levels in a hydroponic tank. Here we share everything because survival depends on it. Competition is a luxury we can't afford. That night, Zexthara recorded his observations with growing confusion. Human scientific methods appear chaotic and inefficient, he spoke into his hidden recorder. However, they achieve surprising results through collaboration and creative problem-solving. Their willingness to share knowledge freely may actually increase their collective capabilities, rather than weakening individual advancement. He paused, thinking about his day's work with Steve and the atmospheric research with Rodriguez. Additionally, they show remarkable adaptability when faced with equipment failures or unexpected challenges. Rather than following predetermined protocols, they invent new solutions using available resources. The third week brought a serious test of human problem-solving abilities. The station's main water recycling system began producing contaminated output, threatening their entire supply. On a Caltherian vessel, this would trigger immediate evacuation protocols and emergency supply requests. The humans had a different response. Okay, team meeting, Rodriguez announced calmly. We have a problem, but we also have the smartest people on Mars right here in this room. Let's figure this out together. They gathered around the broken recycling unit like a surgical team. Lisa traced electrical connections while Steve analyzed the contamination chemistry. Rodriguez coordinated their efforts while Zexthara found himself naturally contributing his observations. Nobody panicked or blamed anyone else for the failure. The filtration membranes are breaking down, Lisa announced after an hour of investigation. We have spares, but not enough to last until the next supply run. Can we clean and reuse the damaged ones? Steve suggested. Maybe, Lisa replied thoughtfully, but we'd need something to restore the molecular structure. Something acidic enough to strip the buildup but not so strong it destroys the membrane itself. Zexthara knew the perfect solution from his advanced chemistry knowledge, but revealing it would be suspicious. Instead, he made a seemingly innocent suggestion. What about combining weak acids from different sources? Sometimes mixtures work better than single compounds. Brilliant, Steve exclaimed. I have organic acids from the food production system. Lisa, What about industrial cleaners from maintenance? Working together, they created a cleaning solution that perfectly restored the filtration membranes. The entire repair took 12 hours of continuous work, but nobody complained about the long day. Instead, they celebrated their success with an impromptu party. "This is what I love about our little team," Rodriguez said as they shared dinner and stories late that night. "When things go wrong, we don't fall apart. We get creative." Zexathara found himself genuinely enjoying the celebration, forgetting for a moment that he was supposed to be observing these humans rather than befriending them. Their joy at solving problems together was completely different from the cold satisfaction Caltherians felt at individual achievements. As the weeks passed, he began to understand something the mission briefings had missed completely. Humans weren't just surviving despite their primitive technology and emotional decision-making. They were thriving because of those very qualities that Caltherian logic considered weaknesses. Their emotions motivated them to care for each other's welfare. Their primitive technology forced them to be creative and resourceful. Their informal social structure allowed rapid adaptation to changing circumstances. Everything the Empire saw as flaws were actually strengths in the harsh environment of space exploration. But Zexathara kept these thoughts to himself, continuing his official reports that focused on human inefficiencies and logical failures. He told himself he was just following orders and maintaining proper scientific objectivity. Deep down, though, he was beginning to suspect that his people might be wrong about humans in ways that could prove very dangerous for everyone involved. The alarm that woke Zexathara was unlike anything he had heard before on the station. Sharp, urgent blasts echoed through the corridors as emergency lights bathed everything in red. He stumbled from his quarters to find the team already gathered in the command center, their faces grim as they stared at multiple displays showing incoming data. "What's happening?" Zexathara asked, though his enhanced senses had already detected the subtle vibrations that meant something massive was approaching through space. "Long-range sensors picked up an asteroid," Rodriguez replied without looking away from his screen. "Big one, and it's heading straight for us." Lisa pulled up trajectory calculations on another monitor. The numbers made Zexathara's blood run cold even though he tried to maintain his human disguise. "Impact in 71 hours, she announced. "Current path puts ground zero about 50 kilometers from the station." "That's close enough to flatten everything," Steve said quietly. "The shockwave alone would destroy the habitat modules." Zexathara watched their faces carefully, expecting to see the panic and despair that Caltherian behavioral models predicted for humans facing certain death. Instead, he saw something completely different. Fear was there, yes, but it was mixed with determination and a strange kind of energy he couldn't identify. "Options," Rodriguez said simply, turning to face his team. "What do we have?" "The emergency shuttle can carry 3 people maximum," Lisa reported after checking their evacuation protocols. "But even if we stripped it down to basics, we couldn't fit everyone." "Then that's not an option," Rodriguez replied immediately. "We all leave together or nobody leaves at all." The casual way he dismissed their only escape route shocked Zexathara. In Caltherian society, logical triage would dictate saving the most valuable individuals. But Rodriguez had rejected that possibility without even considering who might be most worth saving. "What about deflection?" Steve asked. "Can we change its course somehow?" Lisa was already pulling up equipment inventories. "We have mining charges for geological surveys. Maybe 20 kilograms of explosives total. Against something that size." She shook her head. "It would be like throwing pebbles at a mountain." "Unless we hit it at exactly the right spot," Rodriguez said thoughtfully. "Alex, you've studied atmospheric dynamics. How do objects behave when they encounter planetary gravity wells?" Zexathara felt trapped between his mission and his growing concern for these humans. His advanced knowledge could easily solve their problem, but revealing it would expose his true identity. He chose a middle path, sharing just enough to guide them toward a solution. "Small changes in trajectory get amplified by gravitational effects," he said carefully. "Even a tiny course correction early enough could make it miss Mars completely." "But how do we get explosives to the asteroid?" Steve asked. "Our shuttle doesn't have that kind of range." "We don't take the explosives to the asteroid," Lisa said suddenly, her eyes lighting up with inspiration. "We bring the asteroid to the explosives." The others stared at her in confusion, but Zexathara immediately understood her thinking. Human creativity was exceeding even his enhanced expectations. "The atmospheric processors," Lisa continued, gesturing toward the industrial equipment that helped maintain their air supply. We can reconfigure them to create a debris field. If we time it right, the asteroid hits our cloud of particles at exactly the moment we detonate the mining charges. That's insane, Steve breathed. And it might actually work. Rodriguez was already running calculations on his tablet. We'd need to shut down life support to power the processors at maximum output. How long can we survive on stored air? Maybe 8 hours if we're careful, Lisa replied. But the timing would have to be perfect. One mistake and we're dead from suffocation instead of impact. For the next 60 hours, Zexthara watched in fascination as the humans threw themselves into the most desperate engineering project he had ever witnessed. They worked in shifts around the clock, cannibalizing equipment from throughout the station to build their improvised planetary defense system. Lisa transformed the atmospheric processors into particle cannons, creating a complex network of pipes and pressure chambers that could launch debris into precise orbital paths. Steve calculated exactly what materials would create the most effective collision cloud, stripping insulation and structural components from non-essential areas of the station. Rodriguez coordinated everything while monitoring the asteroid's approach, constantly updating their targeting solutions as new sensor data arrived. But what impressed Zexthara most was how they supported each other through the overwhelming stress. When Lisa's hands started shaking from exhaustion and too much coffee, Steve quietly took over her calculations without being asked. When Rodriguez began doubting his leadership decisions, Lisa reminded him of all the crises he had successfully managed before. When Steve's botanical system started failing from power redirections, Rodriguez personally helped him save the most critical food plants. We should contact Earth, Steve suggested during one of their brief rest periods. Let them know what's happening, and tell them what. Rodriguez replied gently. That we're about to try something that has never been tested with equipment that wasn't designed for this purpose. They'd order us to evacuate immediately. Maybe they could send help, Steve persisted. The nearest ship is 3 weeks away, Lisa said. We'll be dead or safe long before anyone could reach us. Zexthara found himself working alongside them with an intensity that surprised him. His mission training had emphasized emotional detachment and objective observation, but watching these humans face death with such courage made detachment impossible. He contributed his enhanced mathematical abilities to their targeting calculations, while carefully disguising the source of his insights. With 12 hours remaining, their jury-rigged system was as ready as they could make it. The station looked like a disaster zone with cables running everywhere and equipment stripped from walls and floors. Life support was operating on minimal power, making every breath precious. Final systems check, Rodriguez announced, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. Lisa, processor status? All 6 units ready for synchronized firing. Particle cloud will deploy at T-minus 47 minutes based on current trajectory. Steve, debris composition, metal fragments, ice particles, and synthetic polymers loaded in optimal ratios. Should create maximum disruption on impact. Alex, targeting verification. Zexthara double-checked the calculations one final time, using his advanced knowledge to ensure perfect accuracy, while making it appear like normal human analysis. Trajectory solutions confirmed. If our timing is exact, the collision will occur at the calculated coordinates. Explosive charges, armed and ready for remote detonation, Lisa confirmed. We get one shot at this. Rodriguez looked around at his team, these humans who had chosen almost certain death over abandoning each other. I want you all to know that serving with you has been the greatest honor of my career. Whatever happens in the next few hours, I'm proud of what we've accomplished together. Speech later, boss, Lisa said with a tired grin. We've got an asteroid to punch. As the final countdown began, Zexthara realized that his understanding of humans had been completely transformed. These weren't primitive beings driven by chaotic emotions. They were something far more dangerous and remarkable. Creatures who could face impossible odds with creativity, courage, and an absolute refusal to abandon those they cared about. The asteroid appeared on their visual displays as a dark speck against the stars, growing larger with each passing minute. In 30 minutes, they would know whether human ingenuity was enough to cheat death one more time. The particle cloud erupted from the atmospheric processors like a silver flower, blooming against the darkness of space. Zexthara watched the display screens with his heart pounding, as millions of tiny fragments spread along their calculated trajectory. Everything depended on timing now, and human engineering that had never been tested under these conditions. Cloud deployment successful, Lisa announced, her voice tight with concentration. Estimated contact with target in 14 minutes. Explosive charges armed and ready, Steve confirmed from his position at the detonation controls. His hands were steady despite the sweat on his forehead. Rodriguez stood behind them all, watching the asteroid grow larger on the visual display. Remember, we detonate the moment it hits the debris field. The combination of particle impact and explosion should be enough to fragment the asteroid or push it off course. Zex. Thara knew their calculations were correct, because he had secretly verified them with his advanced knowledge, but he also knew that even a small error in timing or equipment failure could kill them all. The humans were attempting something that would challenge even Caltherian technology. 10 minutes to contact, Lisa called out. The asteroid was clearly visible now, a dark mountain of rock and ice tumbling through space toward their fragile station. Zexathera could see the determination on the human faces around him. Mixed with fear, they were trying hard to control. 5 minutes. The tension in the control room was becoming unbearable. Zexathera found himself wanting to reveal his true capabilities and save them all with Caltherian technology. His hidden emergency beacon could summon a rescue ship in minutes. His personal force field could protect the entire station from impact, but doing so would expose his mission and betray everything he had been ordered to accomplish. Contact in 60 seconds, Lisa announced. Rodriguez raised his hand, ready to give the detonation signal. Steady, everyone. Wait for my mark. 30 seconds. Zexathera watched the asteroid enter their debris cloud on the display screens. Thousands of particles began striking its surface in brilliant flashes of light. The massive rock began to shudder and crack from the impacts. 15 seconds. 10 seconds. 5. Now, Rodriguez shouted. Steve triggered the explosive charges at the exact moment the asteroid reached maximum penetration into their particle cloud. The combined forces of debris impact and detonation created a spectacular explosion that lit up half the Martian sky. The control room shook from shockwaves as everyone held their breath. Did it work? Steve whispered. Lisa frantically checked her sensors while the explosion's afterglow faded. I'm reading multiple fragments, she reported. The main body split into at least 6 pieces. Trajectory analysis, Rodriguez demanded urgently. Running calculations now, Lisa replied, her fingers flying over her controls. Long seconds passed while the computer processed tracking data from the scattered fragments. 3 pieces will miss Mars completely, she finally announced. 2 more will burn up in the atmosphere, but 1 fragment is still on a collision course. Zexathera's enhanced vision could see the remaining chunk of asteroid on the display screen. It was much smaller than the original, but still large enough to destroy their station if it hit nearby. How long do we have? Rodriguez asked. Impact in 47 minutes, Lisa replied grimly. The fragment will hit about 15 kilometers from here. That's too close, Steve said. The shockwave will still flatten the station. Silence filled the control room as the reality sank in. Their desperate plan had partially succeeded, but it wasn't enough. They had reduced certain death to probable death, but they were still going to die. Zexathera watched their faces, expecting to see despair and defeat. Instead, he saw something that amazed him. The humans looked tired and disappointed, but not broken. Even facing death, they weren't giving up. Emergency protocols, Rodriguez said calmly. We move everyone to the deepest underground storage areas. Maximum structural protection. That might not be enough, Lisa warned. Then we make it enough, Rodriguez replied firmly. We've survived everything Mars has thrown at us so far. We're not stopping now. As they prepared for the final impact, Zexathera felt something break inside him. These humans had shown him courage, creativity, and loyalty beyond anything he had imagined possible. They had worked together to achieve the impossible, and even in failure they refused to abandon hope or each other. His mission suddenly seemed meaningless compared to saving their lives. The Empire's questions about human tactical value were answered completely. Any species that could inspire such dedication and sacrifice was too valuable to lose. I have to tell you something, Zexathera said suddenly, his voice cutting through their preparations. They all turned to look at him, surprised by the urgency in his tone. My name isn't Alex Morrison, he continued, feeling his holographic disguise shimmer and fade. I'm not human. The human stared in shock as his true appearance was revealed. His tall Caltherian frame, Pale blue skin and large black eyes made him look completely alien in their small control room. "What are you?" Steve whispered, but his voice carried curiosity rather than fear. "I'm Zexithara of the Caltharian Empire," he replied. "I was sent here to observe your species and report on your capabilities. Are you here to hurt us?" Rodriguez asked directly, his scientific mind cutting straight to the important question. "No," Zexithara answered immediately. "I was supposed to just watch and gather information, but I can't stand here and let you die when I have the power to save you." He activated his personal emergency beacon, and within moments a shimmering energy shield surrounded the entire research station. The advanced Caltharian technology would protect them from anything short of a direct nuclear explosion. "Will that work?" Lisa asked, staring in amazement at the glowing barrier surrounding their home. "Yes," Zexithara confirmed. "You're completely safe now." The fragment struck Mars exactly where predicted, sending massive shockwaves across the planet's surface. But inside the energy shield, the humans barely felt a tremor. They watched through the viewing ports as debris and dust clouds spread across the horizon, knowing they should have been killed instantly. "Thank you," Rodriguez said simply. "You saved our lives." "You saved mine first," Zexithara replied. "You showed me what it means to be truly alive." "So what happens now?" Steve asked. "Do you report back to your people about us?" Before Zexithara could answer, his communication system activated with an incoming transmission. Elder Vorthman's face appeared in a holographic display, his expression cold with disapproval. "Agent Zexithara," the Elder's voice filled the room, "we have been monitoring your communications. Your emotional contamination by these primitives is complete, and your mission is compromised." The humans looked confused and worried as more Caltharian ships appeared on their sensor displays. "What does he mean?" Lisa asked. "The truth," Zexithara said heavily. "My people weren't just studying humans. They were deciding whether your species should be allowed to survive." Rodriguez stepped closer, his face serious but unafraid. "And what did you decide to tell them?" Zexithara looked around at these remarkable beings who had accepted him even after learning he had been deceiving them for months. They weren't angry or frightened, just concerned for his well-being and curious about his people. "I'm going to tell them," he said, "that humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." "Dangerous how?" Steve asked. "Because you have the power to make anyone, even your enemies, want to protect you." Elder Vorthman's holographic image flickered with cold disapproval as more Caltharian warships materialized in Mars orbit. Their sleek silver hulls reflected the planet's reddish, light-well weapon systems, powered up with ominous energy signatures that Zexithara's enhanced senses could detect even from the surface. "Your mission was simple observation," the Elder continued, his voice carrying the authority of centuries. "Instead, you have compromised our entire operation by revealing yourself to these primitives." Rodriguez stepped forward, placing himself between Zexithara and the holographic display. "If you want to blame someone, blame me. I'm the leader here." "Humans do not give orders to the Caltharian Empire," Vorthman replied with obvious disdain. "You will remain silent while we correct this situation." Lisa moved to stand beside Rodriguez, followed by Steve. In moments, all three humans had positioned themselves protectively around Zexithara, despite having just learned he had been deceiving them for months. Their immediate loyalty stunned him more than any display of technology or intelligence could have. "The High Council has reached its decision regarding your species," Vorthman announced. "Humans are classified as dangerously unpredictable and unsuitable for galactic integration. All off-world colonies will be eliminated to prevent contamination of other systems." "What about Earth?" Steve asked, his voice steady despite the obvious threat. "Earth will be quarantined indefinitely," the Elder replied. "Your people will remain confined to your home planet under strict supervision. Any attempt to expand beyond your solar system will result in complete extermination." Zexithara felt something break inside his chest as he listened to his superior condemn an entire species. These weren't primitive savages threatening galactic peace. They were remarkable beings whose only crime was being different from Caltharian expectations. "You can't do this," he said, stepping out from behind his human friends. "You don't understand what humans are capable of." "We understand perfectly," Vorthman replied coldly. "They are chaotic emotional creatures who make decisions based on irrational impulses rather than logical analysis. Your own behavior proves how dangerous their influence can be. My behavior proves how wrong we are about them, Zexithara shot back. These humans saved my life in ways you can't measure with sensors or calculations. The Elder's expression hardened. You will return to the fleet immediately for psychological reconditioning. These creatures have clearly damaged your mental processes beyond repair. I'm not going anywhere, Zexithara declared, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. Through the viewing ports, he could see more Caltherian ships arriving in orbit. Admiral Kethvar's flagship, a massive battlecruiser armed with planet-cracking weapons, took position directly above the research station. The message was clear: surrender or be destroyed. You have 10 minutes to extract our compromised agent. Admiral Kethvar's voice crackled through the communication system. After that, we will eliminate all evidence of contact between our species. Rodriguez immediately activated the station's emergency communications array. This is Mars Station Beta calling Earth Command. We are under immediate threat from hostile alien forces. Request emergency assistance and alert all human colonies. That transmission will not reach Earth, Borthmean said with satisfaction. We are jamming all human communications in this system. But Lisa was already working at her engineering station with fierce determination. Maybe you're jamming standard frequencies, she muttered while rerouting power through modified circuits. But let's see how you handle this. She triggered a massive burst transmission using every communication system on Mars simultaneously, overwhelming the Caltherian jamming with sheer brute force. The message lasted only seconds before enemy countermeasures cut it off, but Zexithara knew it had been enough to reach Earth. Impressive, Admiral Kethvar's voice carried grudging respect, but ultimately futile. No human force can stand against the Caltherian fleet. Maybe not, Rodriguez replied calmly. But we're not going down without a fight. Steve was already at the weapons console, powering up the mining lasers they used for geological surveys. These weren't designed for combat, but they'll have to do. You're going to fight a space battle with mining equipment? Zexithara asked incredulously. We're going to try, Lisa said with grim determination. It's what humans do when cornered. Zexithara made a decision that he knew would change everything. He activated his personal communication system and began transmitting detailed information about Caltherian ship weaknesses directly to Earth's defense forces, shield frequencies, weapon charging patterns, tactical doctrines, everything he knew about his own people's military capabilities. What are you doing? Forthman demanded. Giving humans a fighting chance, Zexithara replied. Something you should have done from the beginning instead of condemning them for being different. The first exchange of weapons fire lit up Mars orbit like a deadly fireworks display. Human ships began arriving from Earth and Luna, their crude but effective weapon systems guided by the tactical information Zexithara had provided. What they lacked in advanced technology, they made up for with unpredictable tactics and sheer determination. Impossible! Admiral Kethvar's voice carried shock and anger. How are they targeting our weak points so precisely? The battle raged for hours while the research station team coordinated human forces from the surface. Lisa used her engineering skills to help human ships maximize their weapon efficiency. Steve provided biological warfare data about Caltherian physiology that could be used for boarding actions. Rodriguez commanded the overall defense strategy with tactical brilliance that impressed even Zexithara, but it was Zexithara himself who made the difference. His knowledge of Caltherian military procedures allowed human forces to anticipate enemy movements and exploit weaknesses that should have been impossible for primitives to detect. Ship after ship of his former people fell to human ingenuity guided by insider information. You are a traitor to your own species, Elder Vorthman accused during a brief communication lull. No, Zexithara replied firmly. I'm finally being true to what our species should be. These humans taught me that strength comes from protecting others, not from destroying them. The tide of battle turned when human reinforcements arrived from the outer system colonies. Mining ships converted to fighters, cargo haulers armed with improvised weapons, and passenger transports carrying volunteer fighters. Humanity's entire off-world population had mobilized to defend their own. This is insane, Admiral Kethvar transmitted to his fleet. They're using civilian vessels in military operations. Because every human is a soldier when their survival is threatened, Rodriguez explained over the open channel. That's something you never understood about us. The Caltherian fleet, Faced with casualties they hadn't experienced in centuries, and enemy tactics that defied all logical analysis, began a fighting withdrawal. Elder Vorthman's final transmission to Zexithara carried cold fury. You have doomed both our species with your betrayal. The High Council will return with overwhelming force. Then we'll be ready for them, Zexithara replied. Humans and Caltherians fighting together. As the enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace, the research station team gathered around their communication console. Messages of gratitude poured in from Earth and every human colony in the system. So what happens now? Steve asked, looking at their alien friend with warm acceptance. Now I write a different report, Zexithara said with a smile, one that explains why humans are the most valuable species in the galaxy. Rodriguez placed a hand on his shoulder in the gesture of friendship that had become so familiar. Welcome home, Alex, or should I say Zexithara? Either name is fine, he replied, looking around at these remarkable beings who had transformed him from observer to protector. As long as I can stay, Lisa grinned while powering down their improvised weapon systems. After what you just did for us? You're stuck with us forever. Outside the viewing ports, human ships patrolled Mars orbit while repair crews began rebuilding battle damage. Earth's defense forces were already implementing the Caltherian tactical knowledge Zexithara had provided, preparing for the inevitable return of the Empire. But Zexithara felt no fear about the future. He had learned the greatest secret about humans. They didn't just survive impossible odds, they made everyone around them stronger. The Caltherian Empire might return with greater numbers and more advanced weapons, but they would face something they had never encountered before. Humans united with allies who truly understood their worth. And that, Zexithara knew, would make all the difference in the galaxy.